Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
Well, that was an alt-right celebration for Donald Trump that included Nazi salutes, as you saw, and also chanting. It happened just blocks away from the National Holocaust Museum this weekend. The Trump transition team putting out a statement saying, quote, President-elect Trump has continued to denounce racism of any kind, and he was elected because he will be a leader for every American. Should he denounce these groups by name and go further than he has? Let's bring in CNN political commentator and senior contributor for the Daily Caller, Matt Lewis, president and CEO of Endeavor Strategies, Kurt Bardella. He worked as a media consultant for Breitbart News before cutting ties earlier this year, and CNN political commentator Tara Setmeyer. Great to have all of you here. You're all conservatives, I should note, and so you have an interesting perspective, I think, on what's going on with the alt-right. First, let's talk about Donald Trump's response there. Tara, has Donald Trump denounced racism?
I would say it's been very tepid. The problem is that, you know, when he was confronted with this early on in his campaign, he didn't really take the opportunity to nip it in the bud unequivocally.
The David Duke stuff, in other words.
Absolutely. He played coy with it. He should have taken a page out of Ronald Reagan's book, where Ronald Reagan was confronted with this not once but twice, both in 1980 and in 1984, where the Klan came out and supported him, and he said, absolutely not. He said that he would not, quote, tolerate what the Klan stands for. He named them. And then in 1984, he actually wrote a letter to, about this happening again. And he said he called what they believed repugnant and said that there's no place for this in America. So Ronald Reagan had no problem coming out full-throated and said, no, this is unacceptable, and I will not allow any of this in my name. What concerns me is that Donald Trump's initial reaction to this, when he found this out, wasn't one of repulsion. He wasn't upset about this. He wasn't. It didn't. At least he didn't come across that way. Maybe he was in private, but that's not how he publicly
and that's what
approached
does,
it.
Just has a
correct.
Private
like and he kind of hedged. Well, I don't know who they are. I don't know what's going on. And then when he's pushed, then he comes out with a strong statement. I mean, he spent so much time obsessing over Hamilton, Saturday Night Live, and he uses his Twitter thumbs to tweet about all kinds of other rather insignificant, petulant things. But something as important as this, he doesn't find time for, and I think that's problematic, and that's why people look at him and go, okay, so they send out this generic statement about he's against racism, but it's beyond that.
Right, the rubber has to meet the road somewhere.
Absolutely.
Matt, why isn't he following Ronald Reagan's lead and denouncing it for real?
Well, I think he should, in 1984, Reagan, at his, when he received the nomination again for re-election in 1984, he said, many people are welcome in our home, but not the bigots. Ronald Reagan, I think, keenly understood that for conservatism to be a winning philosophy and a kind of philosophy that was appealing to a broad swath of Americans, you had to stamp out the fringe elements.
So why isn't Donald Trump doing that?
Well, I think Trump has done some of it, but I agree he didn't do it early enough, and I think he needs to do it more forcefully.
But I mean, you say he has done some of it. When has he denounced racism?
Well, I think he did it on 60 Minutes just
He said about the protests. He said, stop it. About the protests.
Well,
They're not all black. They were white. They were all sorts of socioeconomic.
I disavow. Now, I would
good enough?
well, no, I don't think it's good enough.
Right, because that wasn't his initial reaction, is my point. I mean, someone who is horrified by that, and should be, right away they should be unequivocally against that, and he wasn't, and that's what makes it concerning, on top of his own, questionable racial baggage in the past.
I want to bring in
Doesn't help.
Kurt right now, because Kurt, you worked at Breitbart, and so you know Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is now in the White House. He will be in January. He's going to be the top strategist. He has Donald Trump's ear. What is Steve Bannon telling Donald Trump about the alt-right movement and those types of conferences that we just heard?
Well, and I think there is probably the largest conflict in all of this, that even if Donald Trump had said something, and he hasn't yet, but if he had addressed this head on, the reality is the sincerity of it would be questioned, because you have the guy who runs the platform for the alt-right, in his own words, as his chief advisor working out of the West Wing. So no matter what Donald Trump says about this or any specific incident, the reality is his own guy is one of the real leaders of this whole alt-right movement,
Yeah.
and he designed a platform as a feeding ground for all of these people. So how can anyone take anything Donald Trump says about race and about this platform with any credibility when his chief advisor is the guy who's running the whole thing?
Let me play for you all one more snippet from this conference, just so we really know what they're talking about. They're not just saying, hail Trump, they are getting into the nitty-gritty of what they want this country to look like. So listen to this moment.
America was, until this past generation, a white country designed for ourselves and our posterity. It is our creation. It is our inheritance, and it belongs to us.
All right, we'll dispense with that revisionist history for a moment and just get to the revulsion of it. Kurt, is that what Steve Bannon believes?
Clearly, I think so. Again, he has said Breitbart is the alt-right platform. These are the people that they have played to, that they have tried to motivate to be the base of Donald Trump's election. And it's just going to be more of this. And I think it's incumbent upon everyone now to be as vigilant as possible in calling this out when it happens, standing up, because you used to look to presidents for leadership, to be part of the moral compass of this country.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. This president is going to be missing in action, and we have to be the first to stand up and point to it.
I think
mean,
that's
look
a
at the
bridge too
Breitbart
far,
headline.
Kurt.
When President Obama, 3 days ago, Breitbart had a headline that said, Obama refuses to condemn violence against Trump supporters.
Mm-hmm.
Where's their story about this right now?
Yeah, but hold on.
No,
what do you
I just
think
want to
is
say, I think
bridge
it's look, I am concerned about the direction of first of all, I do want to put the things in a little bit of context. There were about 200 of these horrific people who were gathered.
So you're saying they're fringe, and I hear
think
you,
they are
except that
fringe.
one of them is in the White House. If
Well,
Kurt's right, who knows Steve Bannon,
I think we need to be very
then
careful
he's in
about
the White House.
Wait,
Why? Why do
Kurt,
you think that's not true?
First of all, I'll concede Kurt knows Steve Bannon better than I do.
Yeah.
I interviewed him in like 2011. I've met him a couple of times.
Yes.
Not that it matters to Bannon or Trump, but I would basically put him on probation. Steve
Why are you giving him a chance?
Bannon today. Steve Bannon today says he is not a white nationalist. He is an economic nationalist.
What's
But listen. Steve Bannon, in his own words, called on Breitbart, called these people dangerous intellectuals, and went on to talk about them almost with an affinity in a way, instead of condemning this despicable philosophy here, this ideology. They are white supremacists and white nationalists. And Stephen Bannon has come out and been very open about his nationalism, and we all understand what that means.
No, but
You've got
I
to
think
stop
there's a
candy coating
distinction.
this.
No, I think
Go
there's a
ahead. What do
distinction
you
though
think it is?
between. So I think
White nationalism means that we prefer to have lots of white folks here,
Right.
no one of color.
But
And white supremacy thinks they're inferior.
What is
think they're
nationalism?
superior.
nationalism-
That is a
But
ridiculous
This country belongs to the whites.
No. White nationalism is that. But nationalism
Yeah, go ahead.
is, look, I'm not a nationalist, but nationalism is, I would say, within the bounds of mainstream political thought. It
I would
basically
disagree.
means you put up nationalism.
Go ahead. I
Nationalism
wanna hear
could
it.
be protecting African American workers from immigrants taking their job. Nationalism means putting America first. Not my cup of tea. I don't buy that.
That's a very
They've
dangerous.
also been anti-immigrant,
in this
anti-global.
environment and the way that Donald Trump ran his campaign. This is a very dangerous nuance that we should not be happening.
Yes.
And conservatives went after Barack
Bernie
Obama.
Sanders
Let me finish
Bernie
my
Sanders
sentence.
is an actor.
No, but conservatives went
Hold
after
on,
Barack
Sarah.
Obama for his associations with Bill Ayers, with
Guys,
Reverend Wright.
I'm out of time.
And why
we
is
have
it
to
not
leave
the
it there.
same?
But the fact that we have to parse this, the fact that
Exactly.
we're struggling to define it for Steve Bannon and the alt-right, that just tells you they need
Problematic.
to do a better job of what they stand for. We'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Let's get over to Chris.
Hey, and you'll have more opportunity to talk about it because these hater groups keep popping up and saying that Trump has somehow given them new license to give out their message. So we'll have more opportunity to denounce them. Hopefully he gets it right the next time. So the Democrats.